So very recently, unless you missed that, of course, there are things visible in the background, but anyway, unless you missed it, I did an interview with Massawe Japani, and from my inbox to the comment section on TikTok to my community, the Radical Resting Space community, the apparently the vote for the most patient person goes to me. And I want to say this. One thing I have intentionally chosen to not move through life, one, looking for validation, and two, waiting for, random people to trigger me and random things to trigger me. And I don't want to say this is what everyone should be doing, and that if you maybe get triggered by something, then you are not within your rights to feel the way you feel. It is totally valid. This is just my own choice. And this is because, especially as feminists, I have had a lot of people saying, you are not angry enough. There's no way you're a feminist, yet you don't have anger within you. Valid point. However, we also need to recognize that harboring anger is also just as exhausting. And now back to the interview. The interview was mostly about who I am. And I knew that matters sexuality, matters gender, matters everything, Patsy. And while preparing for the interview, this is the first thing I made peace with. First things first, the interview was live. And the next thing is, I don't have the control over what the interviewer says or asks. And when I made peace with that, then I knew there was a lot of possibilities. One, it can go south and I have to walk out. And two, I can just sit in the discomfort that I have chosen and discuss my life. And anything that I didn't want to respond to, say I will pass. And that is generally what I did, and that is what I have been practicing a lot. And this is why even this year, 2026, it appears very different to a lot of people, because last year I used to make videos in response. I used to really drag people by their edges when they were transphobic or hateful to me. But at the end of the day, I recognize that sometimes some people hate me, and it is not even because I am trans. Maybe you just don't like me, and that is not something I have control over. The next thing I want to emphasize about is extending grace. The transgender topic, the transgender dialogue, discussion, as far as I'm concerned, is a very new concept. And especially to Kenyans, most people cannot differentiate between an intersex person and a transgender person. And at the end of the day, while I want to literally tell people to fuck off because they have not made use of Google, I also recognize that the information that is available on Google, it is not sufficient enough for you to say that you can eloquently speak the transgender language or eloquently speak the intersex language. And this is why some of the questions have to come up. And this is something I also disclosed, that my family, we were really walking the journey, and they were trying to learn. They were making their mistakes. There was the constant misgendering. There was the use of wrong pronouns until they had we were expecting. And then they were just like, you know what? Wait a minute, pause. What did you say? A baby? How? So this is why I usually say, I feel like this is a discussion that needs to go on. It is a discussion, a conversation that needs to be had. And at the end of the day, as much as we want to say, fuck them, they can make use of Google, people like me have to come forth and sort of sacrifice themselves to be used as learning tools. Otherwise, this conversation is not going to get to a level of progressiveness, because the chances of misinformation and disinformation coming in the way are very high. Remember, with reading, everyone interprets things in their own ways, and that is not what I would want to happen, especially relating to matters, my own life. So I have personally taken on to the Lord of explaining about who I am, about who I exist as, about what I represent. And at the end of the day, I need people to get this in a very clear manner, that I'm not trying to convince you. If you come and call me a dog, it is up to me to decide if I feel like a dog on that day or if I don't. It is not up to you to come and start dictating what I should feel. So at the end of the day, I'm here to say this is who a transgender person is. This is what I live my life as a transgender person. This is how I do my parenting. And that is just it. I am not looking for your opinion. I am not looking for your advice. You are for sure not my therapist. So these are boundaries I feel like people should exist within. And also, relating to that interview, I want to make it very clear that everything I did, everything I answered to, was within the confines of consent. Because some people felt some type of way, some of my allies felt some type of way, and very rightfully so. But at the end of the day, I chose to extend grace. I chose to extend grace because at the end of the day, I'm the person that is doing the advocacy. And I don't want to say I want to be understood, but at the end of the day, if you're teaching about the human anatomy, if you're teaching about a certain topic, you have to have a lot of grace for you to catch up with people when they don't understand, responding to each of the questions they ask every time you feel like well equipped to answer to those particular concerns, comments, or questions. So yes, I decided to go there. There was a lot of soul searching and self-deliberating, and I personally, with consent, took myself to that platform. And Massawe Japani was actually very kind even after the interview. Everyone says, oh, she may be acting friendly, but after the cameras go off, after the mic goes off, then they start like showing their true colors. I have heard that from so many people from my community, and that did not happen. She's very friendly. She was very professional also. And honestly, the questions she asked, as much as people were sort of feeling some type of way about them, these are questions I get on a daily. And it's very I feel like it is very important that someone with the audacity, the guts, actually was able to ask those particular questions on behalf of y'all. And this way, we don't have to keep on going back to like the same questions over and over and over again. I feel like that was very, very much important. Yeah. And if you guys remember, anyone that's tuned in, she kept on reminding me, Patsy, if you don't feel comfortable answering a certain question, kindly don't do it. Don't answer. And you guys know very well, I didn't answer some questions about my partner. I didn't ask some questions about my sexuality, and especially matters regarding my baby. I didn't answer so many things. And that is what autonomy is all about. So every time, because I've seen comments about her, every time I see people saying that she pries on people, I'm just like, but you have the options to answer to those questions or not to answer to them. And at the end of the day, if my brand is insulting people, why do I want to go to an interview and being seen any differently? Of course, the questions that will be asked will be tailored around that particular topic. And that is why matters gender, matters presentation, matters sexuality, any question around that, I was more than willing to answer, because at the end of the day, that is what I am about. And that's how Patsy sees it.